Good evening and thank you for joining us one more time for the scoreboard. Now, if it's sports, if it is just around sports, if it is inside sports, you most likely expect to hear it on scoreboard. So we take you all around the world of sport, and this week again has been another roller coaster of a ride in terms of the happenings in the sports scene. Now, what with the Chicago Marathon, which is where we will start today? The highlights of today's program is the Chicago Marathon and a new world record set in the Chicago Marathon. By who? Another Kenyan. Now, 6 of the best times of the world records, actually 6 of the world records of the marathon have been held by Kenyans. Now, that's a legacy. We'll be talking about it in just a few minutes and how close it was to actually get into the sub 2-hour, marathon record, although it beat Eliud Kipchoge's record of the marathon. So, Kelvin Kiptum, congratulations, and we'll be talking about that in just one moment. There's a story about the shoe and whether it is aiding the record. Sifan Hassan had it as well, and now Kiptum had it as well. Will it help the marathons to be, conquered more? Will we see, better times in the marathon? That's a story we'll be talking about in a few minutes as well. The Mashemeji Derby, one of the fiercest derbies in East Africa and in Africa in general, was played again over the weekend. Gor Mahia triumphing over AFC Leopards by 2-0 and causing the sacking of the coach of AFC Leopards. That's another thing we'll be talking about in just a few minutes when we get deep into our stories. And then again, these Starlets won against Angola. Plus, there is fireworks at the World Cup Rugby in France. This and more stories is what we'll be taking you through in our program today. And as usual, we'd like your inclusion in the program. We want you to participate in it, to give us your comments as well. There is a shoe that is being said to be aiding the winning of the marathons. Do you think a shoe can make you break the world record? Do you think the shoe, let me call it the shoe, can make you break the world record? At Bernard _sports, at KChege_sports, at Wilfred Bungay is where our Twitter handles are at. Would like to interact with you, so get tweeting, get Xing if you'd like to put it that way, and let's talk about what's going on in the world of sports. Let's talk to the gentleman in studio now, Ken Chege.
Good evening, Bernard.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
You're not doing justice to your barber's pocket now.
Don't worry about my barber.
No, I am. You need to pay him, and he hasn't cut your beards now, so I'm noticing that. You need to pay him. What worked for you during the week?
Yeah, what worked for me, Bernard, was something that happened in Europe. There's a Kenyan starlet called Marjorie Nekesa. She was injured. That's why she didn't play when Kenya played Cameroon the other day. She's back to form now. She scored in the UEFA Women's Champions League for her side. She plays for Silver Prague, and she scored twice, and that means she's back to form. So when Kenya meet Botswana next month,
Angola, you mean?
No, it's Botswana.
The Starlets.
The Starlets.
Are you talking about the Starlets?
No, the Starlets.
The Starlets are meeting Angola in the second leg this weekend, right?
That's the under-20s.
Okay, so which one are you talking about?
The main Starlets for
okay. Yeah, so is she Valerie Nekesa?
No, she's Marjorie Nekesa.
Okay, great.
Yes,
all right.
She's back to form, and I'm happy about that.
Great. Really, what didn't work for you? Okay, nothing. Let's go on then to Bungay. Champion, how are you? Wilfred Bungay, 800 meters world Olympics champion. What worked for you during the week?
Bernard, what worked for me is basically what happened in Boston, and especially this is on the women's side. And the reason why I'm looking at on the women's side is that Siva Hassan was able to win, and yet she just ran not so long ago in the World Championships. She was also in Boston this year. It becomes interesting, Bernard, when you have an athlete who is able to run track. Most of the time, if you see most athletes, they will run the track, and then after that, when they proceed, to do marathons, and they never come back to track. It's so interesting when you have an athlete that can still be able to put on what we call the shoes that you run on the marathons, or the racing shoe. Actually, it's called the racing shoes. And then again, you come and put on the spikes. It's always very difficult, and I can tell you that, it works for me.
Because we know that the marathon shoes don't have spikes. We know that. Yeah. They've got to be as comfortable as possible. So that worked for you. Okay. That's good. What worked for me is that Faith Kipyegon and Kelvin Kiptum have both been nominated for the World Athlete of the Year awards. Faith the female athlete of the year, and Kelvin Kiptum for the men's athlete of the year. Of course, there is voting involved as well. I'm always worried about where voting is involved. It just means the majority will carry the day. It doesn't matter even if you had a very good performance. If you have the numbers, that's it. You win it. So let's hope that you're voting for our people, the two champions. What didn't work for me is irate fans of Tusker FC accosted the coach, Robert Matano, and wanted to know why they lost to Shabana. Now Shabana have waited 17 years to win their first Premier League match, and they won it against Tusker. Now that caused a lot of drama. The other thing is that now FC Leopards have fired their coach. We had that today as well because of the loss at the Mashemeji Derby, and another coach has resigned. That is at the Bandari side. You remember Bandari lost to Kakamega Homeboys. So anyway, that is what didn't work for me. But let us get deep into the stories now. Kelvin Kiptum is the new world marathon record holder. He broke Eliud Kipchoge's marathon record, and he recorded 2 hours and 35 seconds. Just 35 seconds off the 2-hour mark. And everybody's talking about a sub 2-hour record coming. Gentlemen, let's get deep into this with this Chicago Marathon race. Captain, you watched the race. What did you think about Kiptum?
First and foremost, I think I have to congratulate Kelvin Kiptum for winning and breaking the world record. Number one is that I watched Kelvin the way he ran in Boston early in the year, where he was able to leave everybody. If you look at the distance that he gave everybody in during the Boston Marathon, and then now we came to Chicago. That is why he broke the world record. I think something very interesting, Bernard, and I think especially for our viewer back home is that Kelvin is an athlete that has been progressing. He started from halfway, and then he went to marathon, and he has been improving. But something very interesting to me is that initially I was worried that why could he not run the world championships? Because he skipped the world championships. He did. He was one of the athletes.
We can argue that he was preparing for this marathon.
Absolutely.
We can argue.
No. That is why
athletes decide what they are going to run, what they are not going to run.
That is what I want to explain. Yes. As a professional athlete, sometimes if you know that your body, you can be able to break a world record, then it is better for you to skip some races that you cannot. Because if you run a world championships, it doesn't have pacemakers.
What I want us to focus on a bit is how many marathons has Eliud Kiptum run? When did he start running marathons? Kelvin Kiptum. Just a moment.
I think he started about 2 years ago because he was 2 years ago. Yes, 2 years ago.
Great. So this progression is what we're talking about. Do you have something on that, Ken?
Yeah. But see, his first race was in December in Valencia.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we remember.
Then his second race was in April.
Are you talking about London? Last year or this year?
December
last year and this year April.
Yes, and then April.
Yes.
And then that's when he was beaten by. That's when Eliud didn't finish the race. Then Chicago. This is only his third marathon.
So what do you make of the progression?
He has shaved off a minute and 18 seconds from his first race. It makes sense. It's somebody in progression. But what I like most about Kelvin is his tactic. When he was halfway through, nobody was even thinking about the record. But then he picked pace in the last 10 kilometers.
I'll tell you something, Ken. That's what all athletes will will make you believe. That I wasn't thinking about the record. It sounds good when you say that. You can't say I knew I was going to beat the record. You sound very braggish. So we can't say. What we have to look at is the split times. That is the important thing. When you look at the split times, and you look at the split times of Kipchoge and of Kiptum in terms of world record, was he in the pace for a world record?
Yes, this is actually that is a very interesting question, Bernard. The reason why I'm saying that is, number one, for him, even by 10 kilometers, he was already in a world record pace. Now, the difference, and I think what Ken is trying to say is that Kelvin is an athlete that he has a slower, faster start. And then now he progresses. And if you look at so many other competitions, and if you see all these athletes, whether it is 800 meters, 5,000 meters, or whatever it is, most of the time, the first lap, if it is 800 meters, for example, would be far much faster than the second lap. Now, in marathon, always halfway is always slow. But for Kiptum, at least he was able to progress, and that's why
he was within the world record
Yeah,
time.
he
Let's
was
put
the
it that
world
way. Okay, so let's say
record.
he had planned to attack the record. I think we leave it at that.
Yes,
and people
absolutely.
have been asking why he didn't attack it earlier, but I think he chose when to attack it, and he got it. Congratulations to Kiptum for that win. There is a story about a shoe, and there's the world record shoe drama that is doing rounds in the circles about the shoe. It's got a description which I don't want to go into.